A star pathfinding algorithm is widely used in all kinds of games for AIs. It calculates the shortest path from point A to point B in a fraction of a second. This algorithm stores three main values on each grid cell that determine which cells to prioritize. First, we have g-cost of the cell that tells us the distance we need to travel from the starting point A to the cell. Second is h-cost that tells us the distance we need to travel from the cell to reach the end point B. And third is the f-cost that we can just calculate by adding the h-cost to the g-cost. The algorithm is starting to search from the starting point A, then it searches all of its neighbors' f-costs and decides which of the f-costs is the lower, and then begins to search the next node, and again it searches all of the neighbors of that node and continues until it finds the node B. So here we can see it in action. Those white cells are just empty spaces and the black ones are walls, and we can see that the purple is the path that it is calculating from the position that I set it to. We can try changing it as much as we want, and almost always it finds a path unless it is blocked. Now let's see how it works behind the scenes. So here we can see the purple path, and we can also see all of the costs of these nodes. In the top left we have the g-cost, in top right we have the h-cost, and the final one is the f-cost. So you can see that as we are getting further from the start node, which is this one, the g-cost is increasing because we are further from the start, and as we are getting closer to the end goal, the h-cost, which is this one, is slowly decreasing. And we can see that some of these nodes have really large numbers. This is because we haven't even searched them. And now we can start making the algorithm work. So I have just empty scene with a pathfinding script that I put on my pathfinding object. We'll start with defining some basic properties for the grid and generate it. We have a variable for the grid height, grid width, cell height and cell width. I also have a boolean with which I will be able to generate the path, and then boolean if we have already generated the path. Then in update, I'm checking if we want to generate the path and we haven't generated it yet. Then I'm generating the grid and I'm setting path generated to true. And if we don't want to generate it, it obviously is not generated. And in the generate grid function, I'm going through all of the x and y coordinates on the grid. Now we'll need a way to store all of these cell values somewhere, so I will create custom class for that. So we have a cell class that is holding its position, the f-cost, g-cost, h-cost. Then we have the connection, which we'll need when we actually find the target cell for which we are looking. Then we'll need to trace our steps back to find the final path. We also have a boolean if this cell is wall, and I have a constructor so that we can easily input the position. And so that we can easily get the cell on some grid position that we input, I will create a dictionary. So in the dictionary, the key is vector2, which is position of the cell, and when we input it, it will give us the value which is the cell. Then in the generate grid function, we can't forget to initialize the dictionary. And as I'm going through all of the positions on the grid, I'm also just adding new cell to the position. And then I'm just randomly choosing 40 positions on the grid, where I'm setting the isWall of the cell to true. Now as we have the grid generated, I will use the onDrawGizmo function, where I will just draw some gizmos if there is wall or not. I also added a boolean if we actually want to visualize the grid, and then I have created the onDrawGizmos function, where first I'm checking if we don't want to visualize it, or the cells dictionary is equal to null. In this case, we don't need to run this function. And then I'm going through all of the key value pairs in the cells dictionary, and I'm checking if the value of the key value pair is not wall. If this is true, I'm setting the gizmos.color to white, otherwise it is black, and then I'm just drawing some cubes on the cell position. Now as we play it, nothing happens because we didn't turn on the visualize grid. And first we also have to generate the path, and once we do that, we can see that we are able to see the grid. So we just have some empty spaces and some walls. We can go back to the code, where I will create function findPath that will be taking in the starting position and the end position. And as we are initializing the grid, I forgot that we are initializing all of these cells with the g-cost, h-cost and f-cost on 0, which is not the best way. It is better to just set it on the maximum value first. So back in the cell class, when we are setting the initial values of the f-cost, g-cost and h-cost, I just set them to the maximum value. Back to the findPath function, we'll need to create three lists. First one will be of the cells that we have already searched, second one will be of the cells that we want to search, and third one will be just of the final path. So we have those three lists, they are all just vector2 lists, and I'm then initializing them in the findPath function, and you can see that in the cells to search function, I'm already adding the start position. Because if we wouldn't have any cell that we want to start with, then the algorithm would just automatically end. Now we'll need to initialize all of the costs of the start node. So as I said, the g cost is just the distance from the node to the start, which in this case will be 0, that's simple, and the h cost is distance from the cell to the end position. But we don't want this to be just a straight line, instead we want this to be the shortest possible position on the grid. Let's say that we have a grid 4x3 and we are starting from the bottom left corner and we want to get to the top right corner. The shortest path in this case is not just a straight line, instead we will need to go one cell to the right and then two cells diagonally. So we will need a function that will calculate that for us. So we have a function getDistance that will get us the distance between two vector2's. We are calculating the distance just by subtracting the x positions and the y positions, and we are doing all of this in the absolute value so that we don't get into lower values than 0. Then I'm calculating the minimum and maximum value of the distance x and the distance y. We are doing that so that we know how many steps we need to take horizontal and how many steps we need to take diagonally. So back to our previous example where we have 4x3 grid. The highest number in this case is on the x because we need to move 3 steps to the right, and on the y it is just 2. But as you've seen, we don't want to be moving 3 steps to the right and then 2 steps up. Instead, we want to make just 1 step to the right, which you can see that we can calculate by subtracting the lowest value from the highest, and then we can just add the horizontal moves that are required to the lowest value. Here we are multiplying the lowest value by 14, because these are the diagonal moves, and the diagonal distance between two cells is 1.4, but because usually it is better to work with ints, we are just multiplying it by 10, so it is times 14, and I'm multiplying the horizontal steps by 10, because the normal distance is just 1 and we have multiplied it by 10. So this function will be really useful for us to calculate the distances between the nodes, but for now we'll just initialize the start node. So g cost of the starting cell is 0, because the distance to start from start is obviously 0. The h cost is just the distance from the start position to the end position, and f cost in this case is the same as the h cost, so we can just again get the distance. And now as we are done with all of this boring setup stuff, we can actually get to the algorithm. We want this function to run through all of these cells that are in the cells to search list. While the cells to search count is greater than 0, we need to first get the cell that we actually want to search, because in the list there may be many of these cells. And the cell that we want to search is the cell with the lowest f cost. So I'm going through all of the positions in the cells to search list. Then I'm comparing if the f cost of this cell is lower than the f cost of the cell that we are trying to search. If this is true, we can just set the cell to search to the new cell. And you can see that in this condition I also have a OR, so we are searching if it has lower f cost, or if there are cells that have the same f cost, we are interested in those that have the lower h cost. And once we have the most promising cell from the cells to search list, we can just remove it from it and add it to the searched cells list. But what if the cell that we are trying to search is already the end cell? Then in this case we can just find the path and also end the algorithm. So if the cell to search position is equal to the end position, we can just find the path and return from the function. But you probably noticed that till now we are not actually searching the cells, so I will create a function that will search all of the neighbors of the cell that we get here. The search cell neighbors function needs the position of the cell of which the neighbors we want to search, and later we will also need to use the end position. So back in the findPath function, I'm just calling the search cell neighbors function on the cell that we want to search. Then I have two for loops that are going through all of the neighbor positions of the cell position, which we then finally get here. First, we'll need to do a few checks with this cell, so we want to make sure that the neighbor cell actually exists, that it is not out of the grid. We also want to make sure that it was not searched yet, and that it is not a wall. So we are doing all of the checks here, and then we are calculating the g-cost to the neighbor. This is just the g-cost of the cell from which we came from, plus the distance between the cell from which we came from and the neighbor position. So on the start cell, the g-cost will be 0, and the distance to the neighbor will either be 10 or 14. And then if we are somewhere further from the start, the g-cost may be, let's say, 52, and we'll add to it again either 10 or 14. After we have the g-cost to the neighbor, we'll need to update all of the values of the neighbor, but we want to update them only if the path that we have now found to the neighbor is actually better than the last one. So I'm checking if the g-cost to the neighbor that we have now calculated is less than the current g-cost of the neighbor. If this is true, I'm getting the neighbor node, I'm setting the connection to the node that we came from, which in this case is just the cell position that we input. I'm setting the g-cost to the g-cost that we have calculated, and I'm setting the h-cost by getting the distance from the neighbor to the end position, and setting the f-cost just by adding those two values. And after that, if the neighbor position is not yet on the cells to search list, we can just add it. And this is almost the whole algorithm, so we'll be able to test it in Unity, but before that we also need to call the findPath function, so I will do that in update. So our start position is 0 and 1, and the end position is 5 and 7. I have made all of these lists serialized fields so that we can check how it is working. We'll say that we want to visualize the grid, generate the path. In the cells to search list, we have 0 cells, so we can see that it is working correctly, that it searched all of these cells that it should, and in the searched cells list, we can see all of the positions that it went through, but we still have no final path, because we have no code for that. But when I try generating the path again, we should see that all of these numbers are changing, and each time there is different amount of these cells that it searched. In this case, there are already some cells to search remaining in the list, which is because we found the path really early, so we don't have to be calculating all of these cells. Now we are back in the findPath function, and to actually find the path it is really simple. If the cell to search is equal to the end position, we can just go until the path cell that is starting on the end position is not equal to the start position, and we'll just trace our steps back based on the positions that we have in the cell, and we have defined it as connection. So to the final path, I'm just adding the path cell, then I'm setting the next path cell to the connection of the current path cell, and once we are at the end, we can just add the start position. And now when I hit generate path, in some cases it generates the path, in some cases it doesn't, because there may be some walls blocking it, so we can try it once more. Yep, and now we can see that the final path was successfully calculated. I will just quickly draw some gizmos so that we know how the path actually looks. So in the draw gizmos function, I'm just checking if the final path contains the current key that we are going through in all of these cells. If this is true, I set the color to magenta. Yep, and we can see the path looks alright. I can try generating it once more, and it is always going from the position to the position that I set it to, and it is always the shortest position. Right now we didn't calculate anything, because the path is probably blocked by some of these walls, so we can try again. Looks really fine. So this way we are able to easily calculate path from any point to any point for, let's say, some enemies. This is really the easiest example of a star path finding that I could think of, so I hope that you now understand it better. The code for it will also be provided in the description, so feel free to check it out. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to drop them down to the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I will see you in next videos. Bye! Thanks for watching this video till the end. If you are looking for a Unity, C# or Bolt tutor, then I am here for you, so feel free to send me a message to my Gmail and take a look at my website for more info. I can help you with your personal projects or teach you anything about game development you would want to know. You are welcome.